welcome to another Writer's Showcase, everybody. We are here, joined here with two lovely guests. Sorry we're a tad late. We had a lovely backroom discussion. Maybe we'll continue it another day. But anyway, allow me to bring in my guests, starting with. Good.
You would have to do the dragon killing one.
He doesn't get killed. He just gets sort of seriously injured.
Still, blasphemy.
Blasphemy.
Well, sacrilege. Technically not blasphemy.
Yeah.
We must keep these things straight.
Yeah. Honestly, I just one of my favorite lines ever is actually you speak blasphemy, sir, fluently.
Fluently. Where is that from? Maybe I just heard you say it.
I don't know if you've seen Tuck Everlasting.
No.
Yeah, that's the reference.
Okay, better bring on the poor aspiring chap.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
I feel like that fit better with Valeria than its status of world domination completed by 0.0000005%.
Fair point.
Alrighty.
Also, if that dragon can still fly after getting shot, then he has serious injury.
Bother. Oh, someone's actually here.
Oh, good.
Hello
Someone's
there.
here.
Always a pleasure to see you,
Wolfie!
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, this must be such an odd time for everyone. No one's gonna be here except you.
Yeah. Okay. This is a dramatically charged moment in the story.
Indeed. Alrighty. Valerian, I think that you should probably go first since you have since you have your nap that you must go on.
It's
walk.
Shut the blazes up. I'm going to have lunch in a moment. Guys screaming. You're actually the one. You actually take more naps than I do, I think. Then that's because you have a rubbish sleeping schedule.
Yes, that is true.
Which I used to have a rubbish sleeping schedule too, so I can't really talk.
I'm not used to.
Yeah. So let me open this. It's open. Let me just get in there.
Oh, it's okay. Set a reminder. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. This is the Lady Margaret thing, and they're talking over how they should respond to the Emperor killing their parents and generally being a sleazebag and things like slavery and serfdom and all the rest of it. Let's see. So I'm not sure where to start, where I left off, but let's start here. I don't want Darzaz to be involved beyond what's absolutely necessary, said the Duke, more calmly this time, possibly because the luncheon was good. We have enough to do governing our country without having to fix other people's problems. He had by now started on his fifth course, being less fussy than the younger Edrion, his son, about precisely where he ate. I'd also rather be involved as little as possible, said Edrion, but she is, after all, my wife. Maybe we shouldn't be so selfish. Ugh, Cold Glyptodont is beastly. No, you can't have any, you pestiferous fowl. We really need to clean up the forest around here. Maybe they shouldn't be so selfish, involving us in their stupid wars, muttered the Duke, but only Edrion heard him. Barama began pacing whether to stay warm or to burn off excess energy, or both. Who knows? What about my mother? Surely I have a duty to help her. Not yet, said Muku. Wait to see how they respond. I don't think your brother Umaran will harm her, since she's his mother as well. He took out a box of rice and began eating it in a leisurely manner, taking a break every now and then to scratch some notes on his tablet. You don't know my brother, said Barama darkly. He wouldn't know the bonds of nature if they screamed in his face and cut his head off. I want at least to keep a close eye on the Umbata. We're too far away here. Yes, the Duke waved his arms enthusiastically, accidentally knocking his water skin on the ground and spilling it. Oh well, at least there was still food in the basket. Best go there and deal with it yourselves. At the very least, I have the right, indeed the duty, to return to my own people and succor them, said Margaret. I must prepare for this journey while you write out our demands, blessed Muku, that is. And I need to think on what I can do to promote justice in my estates. I'll prepare too, said Barama, who was eager to be off. Darzaz was too remote. So will I, said Edrion, although I don't like it. Father, I cannot abandon my wife. The food is better in Nihalumu. We shall talk later, whispered the Duke in response. Edrion the Younger stifled a smile. A sigh. He hated excitement, and triple hated secret meetings with his father. Everyone agreed to let Muku write out the list of demands, although some with more enthusiasm than others. The Duke was non-committal and ostentatiously went on eating while the others badgered Muku with suggestions on what to include on the list. Margaret wanted to demand an end to slavery, the liberation of Saranjis, at the very least those underage, the pardon of Muku, the acknowledgement of the Grand Priest's, the High Priest's decree summoning Malala to Ichikar, to his court to be judged, and she wanted the taxes on the peasants reduced. Barama also wanted his brother to be required to share power with all of his surviving family until the family could arrange an election. Edrion only really wanted his marriage to Margaret recognized and the governor Burunu's claim to the castle Tserthaton thrown out, although he was willing to go along with the high priest's decree so long as they didn't have to get involved in any quarrel with Exalted Box. Muku noted everyone's suggestions on his tablet. But said nothing. After this discussion had gone on for a while, they agreed that he had best head back for the castle, lest anyone come searching for them. After Muku had finished drawing up the list of demands, he was to send messages to everyone. When they arrived back to the castle, they found that one of the vassals had found the treasure. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Move on to the next section. Imuni was seated at her writing table, trying to write a letter to Chiyaku, her daughter Chiyaku, who had, not very willingly, returned to court. Since Imuni, by the way, is Barama's mother, was largely left alone, she had plenty of time to write letters and diaries. She needed, of course, to be careful. When he could be bothered to, her son Umaran censored her letters. And anyway, there could be no doubt that a letter to an imperial Saranji would be opened. It would not do to excite exalted wrath, whilst Chiyaku was effectively a hostage at court. But none could keep her from writing altogether. She ranked too high, and she felt a great need to communicate with her daughter in this time of loneliness and mourning. Pardon me. Beloved daughter, she wrote, I share your grief at the loss of your gracious father and uncle. Imuni's words were, as always, formal, but the heartbreak was real, even if she had seldom seen Pilamar, that is, Margaret's father, after going to convent school at the age of 12. Lady Death's scythe has stricken me with a double blow, stricken all of us. The Warma teaches us that we must endure adversity with fortitude, and I am blessed to have the support of your elder brother. Your brother has broken radically. No, make that improved. What to say? What should I say? That he is cruel to peasants, places upon them heavy burdens in tribute and labor, and punishes them harshly for missing a day's labor on account of illness? No, that will not do. She continued writing. Your brother has wisely increased tribute and labor due from the peasants. This, combined with economy, will doubtless greatly improve the health of the estates. Both Imuni and her daughter Chiaku knew full well that economy wasn't their brother's strong suit. She continued, he wisely and generously lends to the peasants and punishes them condignly if they will not pay. This was an understatement. Instead of giving needy peasants handouts of food or clothing, he would make loans, and when, as commonly happened, the peasants were unable to pay off the loans with interest by the established term, he would enslave them or even lock them in the dungeon, which had perhaps been underused by the previous regime, until their families coughed up the money. The best one could hope for was that he would forget all about the loan, since he was too lazy to keep good records. Also, he didn't torture much for the same reason. In short, if you're one of Umar's peasants, pray that his laziness get the better of his cruelty. Imuni had at first tried to persuade him that this policy was foolish as well as cruel and unjust, asking, would it not be wiser to help them produce more? But when it became obvious that he wasn't listening, she had given up. In theory, the law should have protected the peasantry from the worst exactions, but there was no reliable way to enforce the decisions of the jurists if the powerful did not want them enforced. Or it was at any rate very difficult. We could almost always find an opposing jurist in any case. Not that Umara had bothered. He found the law annoying. She continues, I help the poorer peasants with gifts as best I can, Imuni continued to write. For is not Karat's name Mercy? She paused for a moment and put down her pen. Even the vassals and high officials, unless they be among Umara's cronies or henchmen, do not have it easy, she reflected. My husband Garawada listened to different opinions. Umara rarely does. Umara does what he will, and that changes by the hour. Even those in his good graces often fear that they will not last. This was true. A typical meeting involved Umara saying, I think we should increase the interest on loan to 5/12. What do you think? And the sycophants saying something like, Great One's wisdom astonishes us. And the count saying, Good, let's break for wine, waka'a being a drug, and women. Being a sycophant was fun, apparently. But Imuni had no taste for that sort of thing, and of course thing is mistyped. Pardon me. It won't do to put that in a letter, though, Imuni realized. And she continued, Your brother rules with a firm hand, she wrote, and is praised by all the high officials. I do not doubt that he grieves with us, but he is nonetheless able to find joy in life. I am also pleased to say that he is kind to slaves. Well, to 2 slaves anyway, in any case. Okay. Maybe I'll skip over this bit. Okay. In fact, maybe I'll just stop there. Sorry, this chapter is a bit. Been a while since I actually wrote in this chapter. That's the problem.
It's always unfortunate when you come back to something you haven't written in a while.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that reading was a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it kind of jumped all over the place.
That's because I jumped all over the place.
No worries.
Carry on, though.
I think that there are some interesting stuff about it. I like the letter that was written. I thought it was very intriguing. At least like a good bit of character work.
Oh, maybe I should have read more of it then. Because there's more of that letter. This is something I did with on an earlier scene too. I had when the Count was reminiscing before he got killed, because I had him writing a letter home. So sometimes that can be useful because you can combine the monologue with communication. Only the thing is, when I'm reading out loud, it gets confusing. It's clear in writing which bits are the letter and which bits are her reflecting, but it's not always clear when I read it out loud.
That makes sense.
So that's good. And yeah, I kind of skipped over some bits, so it did jump a bit. Chapter 11. Okay, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
It's kind of short.
Yeah, it was a tad short. I think it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I can read a couple minutes more if you want me to.
Oh, it depends on what you want. This is technically your show. I'm just the host. I was providing the venue.
Let's see. Here's a scene. How long does this one last?
I think it's interesting that Edrion's basically the laziest mother effer in the world.
Yeah, he basically sits around and eats. He's like, whatever, whatever. It's kind of turned into comic relief.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe I'll read another paragraph.
Okay.
Then I'll have to another couple of paragraphs, but then I'll have to remind you about this next time. But I can read a couple of more paragraphs, and then I'm going to go off and get my lunch and listen to whoever's next. Okay. Umara had it easy. He was already in possession of the castle of the Ambata and was able to govern it, however incompetently, without hindrance. The governor Bruno had a more difficult task. He would have to somehow take control of the castle of Certheton against the will of those who held it. He had not expected this to be a problem when, upon returning to Tharmalon from the court of Tenna, he had made ready his state ship, the Imperial Palm, to bring his posse to Certheton. Did he not have express authority from exalted Box to take command there, as the rightful spouse of Pylamar's heir? Upon his arrival, the weather itself, a relatively mild day for early winter, and the lovely, if hilly countryside seemed to smile upon his purpose. There were no blossoms on the tree, but the calendar flowers and fuchsias were still in bloom, and the crepe myrtle still had their autumn foliage. The potus and grey parrots sang cheerfully. It was the 29th of Hahanjadura, 31 December, the feast of the Holy Barama, the evangelist of Ihalamu, and the locals were painting pine cones and arranging them in scenes from Barama's life or from Kalaman history. A charming custom. Alas, Bruno had vastly overestimated the effect his letter from the Emperor would have, little thinking that those in charge would dare resist him, small though his force was. After all, Count Pilomar had come along more or less quietly when summoned by Bruno with a similar force. But the Castellans simply refused to open the gates. Bruno could not believe the guards at the eastern gate when they informed him of this, and he demanded to speak.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks.
Would that count as technical difficulties?
It's not
It was
ineffable difficulties.
What? I said technical?
It's not neffical difficulties, that's for sure.
I said technical.
Neffical difficulties, it's a joke from earlier in the stream. Nef.
Okay, they're just telling me my delivery is going to be a bit late.
I don't understand the joke. I get Neff as a reference, but what?
Sometimes there were technical difficulties with Nef champions, Mike. Therefore, neffical difficulties.
Yeah,
Aww.
I vaguely remember that. That was the dim and misty depths of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, how has Neff been? I haven't seen her in, ever.
Last time I checked, she was playing Dark Souls 3. And she was getting her butt kicked by the tutorial.
Okay, I'll just finish off this little bit, and then I'll get myself some lunch. Let's see. But the Castellans simply refused to open the gates. Bruno could not believe the guards at the eastern gate when they informed him of this, and he demanded to speak to Azargan in person. The Lord Castellan is going over the accounts, said the captain. Doubtless he would have been free to see Greatwyn had Greatwyn deigned to inform us of it in advance of your arrival. Bruno thought that he heard a tinge of sarcasm in the man's voice, although with the heavy Kalaman accent it was hard to tell. The governor banged his staff thrice, ignoring his soldiers' snickers. Behold this letter from Exalted Box, he said. It gives me the authority to come here as Margaret's husband and take possession. Bruno held out. Actually, I take it back. I'm sorry. It gives me the authority to come here as Shirumba Wagon's husband and take possession. Bruno held up the letter for the captain to look at. As whose husband? The guard looked confused. Oh, Margaret's? Why can't you just call her name? Bruno glared at him as if he thought the guard was an idiot. The captain shrugged and took the letter and squinted at it. His Sandaranian was only middling, and he didn't read the court hand very well. Too much red and too many weird curlicues. I'll show this to the Lord Castellan, he said. Greatwyn, wait here. He spoke briefly to the other guards in Kalaman and left, carrying the letter with him. Bruno waited impatiently for about an hour for the Castellan to turn up. The worst of it was that the guards not so subtly eyeing him and talking their Kalaman gibberish and laughing. Despite being governor of Ihalamu, he had barely learnt a few phrases in the accursed language, and mainly relied on interpreters. His soldiers also found him amusing, but were mildly annoyed that the locals durst do so. Finally, the captain returned with the Castellan, Azargan, who looked a little put out. The Castellan made a not very convincing bow and said, I beg Greatwyn's indulgence. I have been busy with the castle accounts, and Greatwyn sent no advance word of his coming. To what do I owe this honor? Bruno frowned. Surely the locals weren't that stupid? Great One has seen the letter from Exalted Box, he asked out loud. I saw it. Azargon handed the letter back. But I regret, Great One, that I can only respond to a direct order from the Countess Margaret. I don't have the authority to answer to anyone else. He bowed again, very stiffly. I command your allegiance, retorted Bruno, banging his staff with the head of what was meant to be a marsupial goat. The authority of this imperial missive and my status as Lady Margaret's husband give me the right to rule here. He sighed. The locals really were stupid. Why couldn't he have been governor somewhere else? We owe allegiance to the House of Pylamar, Great One, replied Azargan, politely but firmly. We have not been informed by the Lady Margaret of any marriage to Great One. The last we heard, she was marrying Edrion of the castle of Malboer-Lichbeers in the province of Darzaz. Without her seal, we cannot recognize your authority. I am sorry. This is rebellion, said Bruno. Do you not see Exalted seal upon the letter? Do you not see this imperial staff that I hold? He pounded the staff on the ground again, thrice. His men snickered sotto voce, but Bruno made as if he didn't notice. At the conquest, lords of Certhaton were granted treaty rights, replied the Castellan, raising a deprecatory hand, but looking at Bruno as though he thought he were a fool. The rights of the comital house were guaranteed. It was stipulated that officials of the castle could only receive orders from the count in person, and that all imperial decrees had to come through him, or her in this case. I can show you the treaty. He took a box from an attendant and began to remove a largish document therefrom. Bruno waved his left hand disdainfully. That's all immaterial. Whatever a previous emperor said isn't to the purpose. Equeque IV rules now, and Exalted has established that I should wed the Lady Margaret and hold Certhaton as a gift from Exalted Box. If Great One will not even read the law, still less respect it, said Azargan, holding up the document for Bruno to see, there is no point in continuing this parley further. We do not accept any authority in contravention of the treaty, nor do we acknowledge Exalted's right to change the terms of the treaty without our consent. If indeed Exalted did try to so change it, as you allege. And one more thing. What? Snapped Bruno, mounting his horse. I'm already weary of your blather. If you do plan on holding this castle, you do well to learn its name. Learn to pronounce its name properly. It's Certhaton. For the first, because Bruno had been saying Chetata the whole time, he couldn't pronounce Certhaton properly. For the first time, the Castellan smiled. The guards also found this highly amusing, the more so as Bruno turned bright purple. His soldiers weren't amused either. Granted that the staff banging thing was hilarious, but this, the locals had a lot of nerve, and who could speak their confounded language anyway? Sorry, I think I've gone way over my turn. Sorry about that. I'm done.
I didn't know you changed your name.
What?
And I didn't know you changed your name to Dunn.
Dice screaming. I mean, that's an insult. That's actionable, actually.
You have committed a hate crime.
I'm morally obligated. I'm morally obligated to make those bad puns.
Bother.
It's like a law or something.
Well, I knew you would do it. I was like, he said done. Even I can't ignore that.
I kind of forgot that was your name.
I don't know how, considering he never lets anyone forget.
Rat.
It's just so easy to make up some bad done puns. It's so easy.
It's been a while since the last bad pun.
It's been a while since we've done a stream before Batman.
Yeah, and I keep missing them. I keep missing them because they keep being at times when
Yeah.
which are not good for me. Like Thursday night is not good for me.
Yeah. Fortunately, it's kind of the only evening besides Tuesday I have available that works for many other people, which is unfortunate. I need to pick it next time. I'll try to pick a different group.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done. Unless you have any particular streaming feedbacks, we can move on to someone else.
Valerian, how did you repeat it?
How did I repeat what? Oh, that. Well, I mean, the word "done" is a fairly common word. You see, it's difficult to avoid using it.
I know, but after we just did it, it's like you should be hyper aware.
You could say I'm finished. That was actually a joke while I was on my mission because you're just called Elder, and then your surname. So like I was just sometimes they would call me Elder Finished.
Elder finished. You're finished, all right.
I think a way to completely avoid it is to say, I have completed this.
That's a little formal, but hey.
Yes, but it makes it so they
unformal.
cannot do the pun. It removes the option of the pun completely.
He'll find a way. He'll find a way.
Yeah, without much difficulty.
He'll if he doesn't do the pun, he'll do something worse. Actually, the pun is probably the least bad thing he could do.
This.
Sausages.
I don't even like sausages.
Same.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage?
He's going to do that for the rest of the stream. That's actually his reading. He's actually writing a novel entitled "Daddy, would you like some sausage?" And that the entire novel consisted of "Daddy, would you like some sausage?" for 1,481 pages.
You know what? Maybe I should do that actually.
I wouldn't have passed you.
Or at
It
least
would be worth.
or at least something that involves Daddy, would you like some sausage?
I shouldn't have given you any good ideas.
It's a $2 ebook.
It's a troll book.
It's a troll book. You realize I'm not going to buy it, right?
This is how you try and sell it. You tell everyone it's a prank gift. People will buy it just to gift it to other people.
Yeah, probably actually. Alrighty. Alright. Aspiring, it do be your turn.
Yes. Well, I'll still give a recap. How much do you guys remember?
We're in the middle of a heist, as far as I can recall.
Okay, so we've been through Triple's arc, where she is saved from Mind Slave Camp and does her old little test initiation thing. She's seen if she can kill someone on their orders and passes the raid technicality. And then we went to Q, who, after we introduced to them stealing a ship with the Space Benders, he is then captured by the Angels and freed by the Revolutionaries, who reveal they wish to hire him for an assassination job on Mirage, one of the 5 sources of the Ascending Territory. And now we are on our 3rd main POV. I swear this is the last main POV. And the last third of the introduction part of this story. Hope you enjoy the character that I decided to pick for this. The stone streets were empty. The windows on the building across all dark, the residents asleep. Silent, except for the faint buzz of business from the landing dock, she watched from inside the sparse room, the only light being what came through the window, herself hidden in the shadows. Straightening up as someone walked under the landing dock entrance, she relaxed as she saw it was just a Phillies, holding a box of what she assumed would be energy cells. Residents of Sullen 2 didn't have Sardom power facilities to provide virtually infinite energy, so there would be energy cells for sale at the makeshift market. Though at this time, most of the business out there would be between off-worlders wanting a more unregulated place to trade. The Philly disappeared around the corner, and she finally permitted herself a moment to stretch, making sure to keep an eye on the entrance. Footsteps outside of the door to her room caused her to freeze mid-stretch, but she continued as the footsteps went past her room. The hostel owner had specific instructions to see her room not be disturbed for any reason. He had not initially taken that seriously, but thankfully that infraction was done before she arrived on the scene. Still, she didn't want another accident. Whoever entered wouldn't be able to leave if there was another. A ping sounded from her comm, and after tapping her mask, Vampra asked, "Status?" Her lips curved up slightly as she heard Mark groan softly. "You tell us, you're the one watching the entrance. I'm stuck waiting on all of you for news." Vampra pressed her lips together. He was getting more irritable with each passing day waiting there. Mark wasn't unfamiliar with long stakeouts. In fact, he had more experience than she. But they had been forced to assign him to guard the entrance into the mining tunnels. They needed someone who could follow Quietus, if Quietus ever showed, without being noticed, and in the tunnels they couldn't afford mistakes. Even a moment's hesitation could mean losing their target. No sign of him, Vampra sighed, feeling worn from the mission herself. Her duties were normally far more active than these past few weeks of waiting and observing. Our squads in the landing dock haven't reported anything either. Great. How's Podal behaving? He's still terrified, if that's what you're asking, Rebound came in. She and Gollum were faring better than they, but they were also staying in Podal's hostel, which had cozier rooms than the stone boxes she and Mark were staying in. Glancing away from the window for a moment, she gave the room a once-over. Then again, she did normally spend most of her time in a flying metal can with a bunk. Not much of a downgrade, really. He should be coming soon, though, yes? Rebound asked, a tentative hope seeping into her voice. Vampra didn't respond. They'd received word of Quietus's and Kolos' communication, so if Quietus were to show, now would be the time. But it was just as likely that Quietus wasn't headed here at all. No, he'll show, she assured herself. Sullen 2 is where they always go. An oasis in the desert to stop at. Vampra, Mark asked, we could try having Podal reach out to him. I know it'd be out of the ordinary, but we need... Hold, she said, her eyes narrowing. A man with a black coat and wide-brimmed hat edged with blue had just stopped near the entrance. A quick look at his face, and Vampra grinned. Their target had arrived. Mark, Rebound, Gollum, look alive. The Laodicean has just entered the town. Have your squad be prepared for interception, but make sure they do not leave the landing dock. They are insurance, nothing more. As they gave her acknowledgments, she kept her eyes on the darkly clothed figure. He hadn't bothered with a disguise or even less identifiable clothing. Can I speak today? He stared straight ahead where the tunnel entrance would be, but then turned, heading in the direction of Podal's hostel. Gollum, Rebound. He's heading toward you. Have Podal get ready if he isn't already. Don't tell him Quietus is coming. It should help sell his act. Rebound. Have your spirit tail him and report his movements. Vampra moved herself to the other side of the window for a clearer view of the street, in case Quietus doubled back. Checking her soul reserves, she clenched her teeth at the small amount she had. She and Mark hadn't had the chance to replenish themselves since they landed on Solent 2. If they could just kill Quietus, it wouldn't be much of an issue, but they needed him alive, and that made things complicated. Target has reached the hostel, Rebound reported, whispering despite her mask being able to muffle whatever she said. Do you want me to try and listen in on what they're saying? Negative. Keep your spirit out of sight and watch from distance. If you see anything suspicious, report, but leave them be. And remember, Quietus is more likely to look up than most, so be creative where you hide your spirit. If Podal bothered to say anything they didn't want, whether or not they heard it wouldn't matter. Best to keep out of sight. Targets left the hostel. Gollum start following now. Vamper listened as Rebound gave Gollum instructions until he caught up to Quietus. If he managed to go unnoticed, he and Mark might be able to jump him at the entrance rather than waiting to corner him. Gollum, he spotted you, Rebound said before cursing. Vamper let out a silent curse of her own. He's on the wall between the first and second level. Wait. A minute passed before she spoke again. Gollum, last door on the second floor. Break the lock, it's old. The other inside is sleeping, try not to wake them. Be ready to jump out the window on my signal. Resisting the urge to pace, Vampire wished she had a spirit of her own to puppet around. It'd be nice being able to see what was happening herself. Now, Rebound ordered, and silence followed. 1 minute turned to 2, and 2 to 10. Rebound would be focusing too much on her spirit to say anything. Controlling 2 bodies wasn't easy even for one trained for it. Finally, Rebound's voice came back. Gollum's dead. Target is blowing him to bits. Vamper heard a groan from Mark to match her own. She was hoping they wouldn't have to replace Gollum so quickly, but it seemed that was too much to hope for. Rebound, get out of there. Keep your spirit near the hostel and send word to us when you find somewhere safe to hide. This is going well, Mark bit out bitterly. Pinching her nose, Vamper took a deep breath. Golems are expendable. Shouldn't have trusted the brute to follow him. We still have him trapped. He's blowing Gollum apart. Wonder if he'll try it out with us, Mark commented. Your point being? We could just end this quickly rather than risk him escaping. Negative. We were told to capture him alive, so we will. Jared Mark softly grumbled before saying affirmative. Rebound, we need an update. It took a moment before her breathing came in, sounding slightly winded. I'm here. Target is in the hostel. He noticed the body and is searching the rooms. Vamper frowned. Body? Who's... Rebound, did you kill Podal? Unfortunately. I asked him for his unit screen and I saw him reaching for his firearm. Damn fool. Did you get the screen? Affirmative. I already have the transfer Quietus made with Podal up. We'll be able to track his purchases or shut down his account should he escape. Hopefully that won't be necessary. Where are you hiding? Somewhere at the edge of the subterranean town between buildings. There's a window I can crawl through if he happens to come through here. Good, stay there. Keep me posted on Quietus. What's he doing now? Rebound went silent for a moment. He's outside. He spotted where I kept my spirit. He's staring at it now. Rebound, take your spirit to Mark's position and hold there. Quietus already knows angels are here. If he's seeing Rebound, then perhaps I can use that to move him toward me. Mark, once Rebound leaves, Quietus will head toward the landing dock. Make your way toward me, but conserve your souls. Gripping the window at its side, 1 foot on the sill, Vamper waited. It wasn't long before she saw Quietus flying in, slowing down before her and looking back. He was now encompassed in a black suit, hiding his face. He started forward again, then, consuming souls, Vamper straightened her legs and pounced, launching herself forward. Colliding with Quietus, she sent him flying into the building. Vamper winced as she heard the impact. That hit harder than intended. Still, if a broken rib or two made him easier to detain, so be it. Ceasing her consumption of souls, she waited as Quietus recovered. Capturing him will be easier once Mark arrives. Best not to risk doing anything rash lest she provide him with an opportunity. While his expression was hidden, Vampire could see his shock as he rose and saw her. The sudden tensing of his entire body, frozen while bent over, the way he didn't seem to see anything other than her. He'd seen it before and will again. While I know what your answer will be, I believe it only courteous to give you a chance to avoid the thrashings resistance would provide you. Or is courtesy something you abandon along with the royal families? Perhaps if I get him talking, Mark will arrive before I have to act. He always did like the sound of his own voice too much. But Quetus didn't respond, didn't even move. Am I supposed to interpret that silence? Quetus continued staring at her. I'd heard you were quite the verbal sparring partner. I must say, this has been quite disappointing. If he doesn't say something and I don't make a move, he's bound to get suspicious. Thankfully, it was then he seemed to recover from his initial shock, brushing himself off casually as if he'd just tripped. Hands on his hips, he said, Well, hard to exchange verbal blows when one breath is knocked out. The corner of Vampire's lip went up. Quetus never could resist responding to a verbal jab. Despite the new look, he hadn't changed from his royal family days. No better way to win a match than making sure your opponent can't fight back. Quetus nodded slightly. True, but I find it's better to avoid the match altogether in my experience. Ruins the fabric, you know? He motioned to the bloodstains on his coat. Gollum's blood. Indeed, she said, tilting her head. Was he trying to provoke her? Will you be avoiding this fight? To her surprise, he bowed deeply. Seeing any Latician bow was a sight, much less Quetus, who never did more than incline his head. I see there is no other choice. As he rose from the bow, she saw something in his hand, and as Quetus flicked it at her, she knew what it would do. That certainly explains the bow, Vampire thought as she quickly consumed souls, straightening herself. As the bang deafened her ears, fire washed over her, burning her skin. The force of the explosion itself barely nudged her. She consumed a lot of souls to prevent that. Annoyed, Vampire saw Quetus running as the fire dissipated. She started increasing her speed rather than strength, and everything slowed. In mid-stride, she could see Quetus's foot move down slowly for another step. Moving past him, she came to a stop in front of Quetus. Touching him at this speed could injure, if not kill him by accident. Ceasing her consumption, time appeared to revert back to normal, Quetus nearly tripping as he came to a stop. Consuming again, she started to heal the birds on her face and hands, slowly. Besides it being intimidating, it conserved souls when she healed slowly. Half her soul reserves were already gone from those few seconds. Reaching for his strange plasma arm, Quetus backed away, and as he raised it, Vampire gripped the barrel, forcing his aim away, and grabbed him by the elbow. Whirling around with him, she pinned Quetus up against the building, pulling his arm back until he released the plasma arm. Letting him go, she looked through the settings. Raising an eyebrow at the one labeled Devastation, she set it on Stun. Does it make this easier for her? Pointing it at Quetus at the same time he got out a second one, she pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. She looked at the weapon in confusion. A click of the tongue made Vampire look for the plasma arm to Quetus. Can't use my toys against me, he said before firing a wave of energy, lifting her off the ground. What kind of weapon is that? She thought as she fell to the ground. Eyes flaring, she rose and removed the sight attached to her back to see Quetus was almost at the landing dock. Straightening her legs, she jumped, her head nearly touching the cavern ceiling, and with a straightened arm threw her sight like a spear, the top blade embedding itself into the ground in front of Quetus with a satisfying clink. As she was falling down, she reached her arm out and pulled herself toward her sight, the gloves glowing with lines of blue from the Etean within. As Quetus turned around, she extended her leg for a kick. Her eyes widened as Quetus moved to his side and grabbed her leg, redirecting and swinging her to hit the stone building with her back. Rolling her shoulders with little healing, she straightened her arm and grabbed the wall, using it to anchor herself as she pulled the sight out of the ground to fly to her. I should really get myself one of those. Oh wait, I do. Giving her a small wave, he started falling sideways, head first. Dat boy! Lunging, she grabbed his foot and struck her sight into the ground again. Holding on, she suddenly found herself not pulling on anything, as Quetus reversed direction and planted his feet on the plate on her chest, and pushed her away, escaping her grip. Recovering quickly, she ceased all consuming and focused on using her souls for one thing. Power. Pure power. Electricity crackled in her hand, and with a jab, it shot from her fingers to Quietus. His composure fell as his body contorted, skidding on the ground before coming to a stop. A quick glance within her showed her soul reserve was almost empty, the rest all being consumed slowly to stop her raging. And after all that, she still might have failed. Quietus didn't appear to be moving. Had she used too much? A sigh of relief escaped her as Quietus slowly pushed himself up, at first unable to get on his feet before shakily rising. Moving toward him, she ripped the plasma arm he drew out of his hand and tossed it somewhere behind her. Grabbing Quietus by the coat, she flipped him over her, putting herself between him and the entrance. Reaching out to her sight, which was still embedded where she had grabbed him, it flew to her hand, Quietus narrowly dodging a hit to the head. He reached inside his coat again, and Vampira swung her sight like a bat, knocking the plasma arm away. He was starting to annoy her with those. She moved closer to try and sweep his legs with the snap as he rose, but he dove back before she could, reaching for his plasma arm. Reaching for him, she felt a spike of fear before realizing the plasma arm wasn't there anymore. Smiling, she watched it seem to appear out of thin air, the one holding it becoming visible soon after. I already tried that, Vampira told Mark. Doesn't fire except for him. She heard Mark grumbling, disappointed not being able to use a strange weapon. He slipped the plasma arm somewhere underneath his heavy cloak, and Vampira frowned when he brought out one of his firearms. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Getting rid of a problem." Vampira pointed to her mask, signaling him to turn on his muffler before continuing. "I thought I told you we weren't going to kill him." "I'm still having doubts about that," Mark admitted. "The young Latician has been able to evade the Ascending territory for years, and now, with him on the ground and defenseless, we're going to let this chance go?" Vampira's eyebrows drew together into a scowl. Was he serious? "We're not letting him go, Mark. We're giving him to be detained until ready to be escorted to Executor. And you'll think they'll be able to hold him," he demanded. "He's a slippery one. We let him live, he'll escape." "That's not our concern," she said tightly, fighting her feelings of agreement toward a sentiment. "If he escapes, we'll capture him again." "Again?" he cried, stepping toward her. "We've been here for more than a standard month, waiting to ambush him. Next time may take even longer. Why risk that when we could solve the problem right now?" The firearm was pointed close to Quietus's head. Mirage is not who we answer to." Vampira grit her teeth at the interruption, forcing herself to remain composed. "Mirage and Executor," she said in a way that was both sweet and venomous, "have ordered him to be captured alive. They said to capture him alive, kill if necessary." Mark looked down at Quietus, the murder in his eyes visible even from behind the mask. "We can say we determined it necessary." Vampira sighed quietly. "They need him for public execution. He's gained too much notoriety to do away with quietly. An example needs to be made." They held each other's gaze for a moment before Mark sighed, the firearm disappearing under the cloak. "You're right, of course, but I still think we're going to regret it." She looked down at Quietus, who had been staring at Mark throughout the entire conversation. "Perhaps," she said again, agreeing with Mark. They wouldn't be part of the escort, and Vampira didn't trust anyone besides themselves to handle one. But they both had other places to be. Mark tilted his head toward Quietus. "You want to do the honors?" Looking at her soul reserve, she shook her head. "All yours." Mark reared his fist, and with a strengthened blow, slammed it into the side of Quietus's face, dropping him immediately. Vampira let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Had she been holding it in all these weeks? She felt like it. Putting the sight against her back, Vampira activated the ETN attractors in her coat, keeping the sight attached to her back. Contacting Rebound, Vampira said, "Rebound, the mission is complete. Come to the entrance and have your squad clean up as many signs of us being here as they can." "Understood." Turning to Mark, she saw he also appeared more relaxed now that the assignment was over. "You want to hand him over?" Vampira shook her head, a newfound impatience growing within her. "No, we'll wait here until your squad arrives and leave it to them. I trust you'll be able to handle cleaning up here and reporting to Executor?" She got the impression Mark was raising an eyebrow at her. More than able, though it's going to be embarrassing to mention we lost another golem so soon. There's a reason we have so many candidates lined up for the role. Remember to go and absorb Golem Splinter's soul before leaving. Will do. Where are you going? Mark's squad had arrived and was surrounding Quietus. A blissful smile grew on her face as she turned away and headed for her freighter. I have someone to meet. End of chapter. Concerns, comments.
Let me think through it. A lot went down. I think the heist was pretty good. I couldn't remember the stakes very well. I must admit.
Stakes where?
Like the stakes of what the heist was about. I couldn't quite remember that.
It's Angels capturing Q.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Sorry.
Basically, so our new VOP chapter is Vampira, who I've at this point introduced as a villain up till this point. And I like the descriptive word. Thank you.
Yeah, the action was very cool. I think the sequence of events is very clear. It was just I was having a hard time remembering why they were doing it.
Yeah, it was an intriguing beginning, certainly.
Yeah, because this is technically a repeat chapter because it's playing the same. It's like Q's 3 chapters are kind of in this one, except it's all from Vampira's perspective instead. And do you think it was still engaging despite that, seeing it from her perspective rather than Q's?
Yeah, at first I didn't realize that right off. So
yeah, well, I didn't mention her name for a while specifically for that because I am aware it's gonna hopefully be surprising to people. Be like, oh, Vampira's our next POV. Okay.
yeah, like the way they went from the Starks and so and then they went to Cersei for their POV.
Yeah.
In a slightly condensed time frame.
Yeah, it's the first chapter, and it's like we've seen all the events, so it's not like we don't know what's going to happen. We're just seeing it through someone else's eye, so it doesn't need to be too long.
And she munches on souls.
Yes. What did you think of that? Her powers are, for the time being, all you know is she has souls within her that you can consume for power, which includes strength, speed, and lightning, and healing, and aging.
Are they someone else's souls, or does she have several souls? Does she eat other people's souls, or are these her own souls? Does she have more than one soul? That'd be kind of weird.
She absorbs other souls once, because basically you kill someone, their soul's released. We've seen this before with Triple, who has the ability to see other souls. And they stay around for a while before disappearing somewhere. And in that time, Vampira can absorb them, contain them in her, and then consume them for power.
That must be a riot for those souls.
Not really.
Kind of sounds like what is it? Warbreaker. It kind of sounds like a breath / awakening.
Kind of, though the souls do not come back. And lightning specifically takes a lot out. It also explains why she does things like super speed to the point that she can get in front of him in less than a second, but she can't just keep doing it. She is limited in that regard.
It's giving me an appetite.
Indeed. Anything else you guys found interesting?
I think you did do a good job with kind of describing the action. Though I kind of was kind of trying to get a gauge of where the tension was in the scene to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Again, it's you already know the conclusion of the fight, so I wasn't sure should I make a big deal? or she just play it out and be like, yeah, we've seen what's going to happen. We're just now seeing her own decisions in what plays out.
Yeah. So the area of interest is her then, not the action, but her reaction to the action.
Yeah,
Her attitude
because
towards it.
it's like I don't know if I should try creating tension in a scene we've literally already read.
Yeah, I mean the tension wouldn't be narrative tension, psychological tension, perhaps.
Yeah. We're seeing her be like, is he going to say anything? And then getting really frustrated as it progresses, and she's kind of having difficulty pinning him down to the point where she finally decides to just zap him and almost kill him.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, seems very straightforward. No, I don't think so.
Yay!
I think like it's going to be easier kind of reading it kind of sequentially rather than kind of listening at kind of sporadic intervals.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's kind of why I asked earlier, because I'm like, I'm not sure if the impact of having this last POV character revealed when you guys might not even remember who Vampire is.
Yeah, I have this problem too when I'm reading after, especially since I've got so many names and they're all in like made up languages. So trying to keep everything like, because I have to keep interjecting and saying that so and so's father, so and so's mother, so and so is the governor of such and such. I have to keep explaining these things as we go because you are not going to remember that.
Yeah. Do be shame.
But it's kind of unavoidable. There's no way of going around it because we're doing it orally.
Yeah, pretty much. Alrighty. Any thoughts from you, Balerion?
I already gave all my thoughts.
All right, good.
Any thoughts in the chat? Raptor? Wolfie?
Let's see.
Are you going to? Yes, I am. I'm just finding my spot up where I left off. It's gonna be a little bit difficult since I'm tired. Done as it's not that I'm really tired. It's just I'm a little bit groggy because I just donated a significant amount of plasma.
How did I get muted just now?
I think you muted yourself, as far as I know. At least I think so. I didn't,
Okay. I was wondering why you were talking when I was trying to read comments from the chat about who I was reading, but that's why. Okay. Raptor says he liked the descriptive words. DWLW says hello.
A big bag of tiny munchable souls like popcorn.
Yeah, that's what Whaley says.
It's like I was a little like she has a little bag attached to her waist, and then she just like pops in like a pill. It's like,
Yeah, man, souls, man. He's just standing there menacing me. I don't know if she's quoting from you or commenting. I don't remember what that's about. I don't know if that's a comment or just a quote from or what. Perhaps she'll clarify, perhaps not.
well, I'm pretty sure that would be for you. At least I assume so.
Oh, from my chapter?
I think so.
Where I left off on a bit of a cliffhanger, I guess. Yeah, maybe that's from mine. I don't know. Could be either one. It's hard to tell from the.
It was for aspiring.
Oh,
It was.
Yeah.
He's just in for aspiring. There was a point where he said, "What is the character doing for aspiring?" You mean like Mark, where he's like just standing in front of Quietus?
Yeah. Alrighty.
How do you spell Cletus?
Quietus.
Oh, okay. Because I was reading it Cletus all that time. I was thinking the chap's name from Dances with Dragons. So that was the name I had in my mind. But then I realized he was Q afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hates his original name due to some bitterness, and considering Q is not really seen kindly amongst the Ascending Territory, I imagine they just would not humor his nickname and just keep calling him Quietus or Latician.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, the amount of times I typed in Q instead of Quietus and had to go back and fix that
Oh,
was
yeah.
really annoying.
Yeah, it's that can be annoying when you type like the totally wrong thing. You have to go and do a whole. Sometimes you have to do a whole replace all, but you can't do that with Q, obviously.
I couldn't even use Control FQ because I have too many mentions of that, even if I do the space thing to separate it.
I see. It was a silly reference to SpongeBob.
It is the Soul Muncher's girl name is Vampra, which is inspired from. There was a YouTube channel called Stickbot Central when that was a whole thing, and I saw one of their little stop motion series, and I was like, "Oh, this is entertaining." And that character is based off of one they have called Vampra, which
Vampra the Vamp.
yeah, I didn't even connect that initially, but then I told someone name the character and what her powers were, and they immediately like, so that's why you called her Vampire because she's a vampire. I'm like, wait, what? And then I realized, oh god, it's true. Fuck. That wasn't why I named her that, but okay.
Yeah, a vamp used to be a seductive woman, but I think that's even before my time.
I think that's still in place. That is actually.
Yeah, it was initially creepy monster and then turned into seductive as people started being like, yeah, vampire, sexy.
Because she sucks the blood of the men whom she seduces, or some such rot.
Well, yeah. So there's either evil monster who attacks you, or there's like the suck. They basically made them succubi.
It's
Pretty
actually.
much.
It's actually weirder.
What?
Apparently, the noun of vamp in jazz, as or popular music, a short, simple introductory passage, usually repeated several times until otherwise instructed, or the upper part of boot or shoe. Informal, repair, or improve something, likely in reference to revamp. And kind of in the other term, a seductive woman who uses her sexual attractiveness to exploit men.
What did you look up?
Vamp.
Vamp.
I suspect some of those are completely different words that are now the same in English, but they're originally etymologically different.
Yeah.
Vamp is a real word.
Yeah. Well, revamp is usually a building term. I remember reference to making a building a lot better. It's also, for whatever reason, a short jazz thing.
The upper front part of a boot or shoe. Why do I have imagery when I think of that?
Let's see. Vamp of shoe. See the first van, paragraph 4. Okay. Middle French avant-pied, forefoot. Which becomes Middle English vampa, English vamp, originally a sock.
Huh. Weird.
So that's news on me. So I guess I did learn. I guess I can still learn things too.
Indeed.
Alrighty. Alright. Nice. It is my turn. So summarize what happened in the bit of the previous section. Mordred and Kate, Kara, and Varys are now traveling back to Lake Blackir, which turns out is Mordred's old home. He's kind of saying, okay, what's all this about? He doesn't particularly like what he sees. He sees mostly that the once beautiful city is now just a functional barrack town. He really hates that. Only like traces. And now they're coming back. He's really doesn't like what he's seeing, and that kind of worries Kate and Varys, and it's like, please promise that you will not kill anyone, and at least. Sure, I'll promise that. And that's where we kind of left off. It was and as the army entered the gates, that the people began coming to meet them. Families of the soldiers running to find their husbands or wives, children finding their parents. However, there were many that watched hopefully, only to have their faces fall and turn away in grief. Those hurt Mordred. Some of them had lost their loved ones before he was awakened, but others had probably fallen before he had gotten to the battlefield. For a moment, he let himself join in their grief, bowing his head in reverence for the dead. I can't save everyone, and Mordred thought, watching the families of the returning soldiers find a few of the families that were mourning and go off together. But I will save who I can. Lord Arthur? An older stewardess asked, walking toward him with a strange expression on her face. Is that you? Your face? Your face. Mordred raised his good hand to his cheek and felt the 3 edges running along his skin, running down his face. He'd never seen anything like it before. Possibly it was a symptom of his hijacking Siegfried's body. No, he swallowed. Evil men tried to get a demon to possess Arthur's body, but I intervened, allowing his spirit to pass to the great beyond its touch. The one pulled away, fear in her eyes. Who are you? Mordred didn't have the time he would have liked to have, but honesty would be his best ally. I am what remains of a long-dead god, he said simply. I've been brought back to serve this people as I did many thousands of years ago. It cannot be, the stewardess whispered, backing away from him. Mordred looked around as the people began backing away as well. Casually, Mordred slid off his horse and walked into the crowd. Are there any infirm or crippled among you? He asked, opening his arms welcomingly. Bring them to me. I will heal them, so that I may prove what and who I am. Everyone turned to look at him, eyes betraying their shock, but something else was in their eyes. Hope. Kara stared at Mordred as he stood among the crowd. He looked like a king, but a king who stood with his subjects, not above them. The man abruptly ran from the crowd, holding the stump of his arm. If you can heal me, sir. He extended his truncated limb toward Mordred. Please. Gently as a father comforting his child, Mordred took the arm in his malformed fingers and regular hand. You will be made whole, he promised. Gasps ran through the crowd as the limb rapidly regrew itself. Jaw hanging open, Kara stared at the former cripple as he raised his new hand to his face, tears flowing down his cheeks. Weeping, the man dropped to his knees, and to her surprise, Mordred knelt down next to him, holding the man's shoulders. Thank you, the man whispered, clasping onto Mordred as if he were drowning. Thank you. Gently, Mordred patted the man on the back, then slowly helped him to his feet. That's possible? Kate whispered, staring at Mordred as our people began and crowding around him, clamoring to be healed. Nobody can do that. Regrowing limbs would take an immense amount of energy, either from the person or healer, more than a human could handle. Well, he's not human, Kara shrugged. Maybe. She cut off as a man wearing a merchant's badge on his shoulder rushed through the crowd holding a young girl. Please, Sir Ire, my daughter was born blind. Can you heal her? He knelt before Mordred, still holding the girl in his arms. Please. Mordred reached down and pulled the father to his feet. Gently, he took the child and placed a hand over her eyes. For a moment, the strange man's face became intent, as if he were solving a complicated problem. Finally, he breathed out and pulled his hand away. For a moment, the little girl's eyes remained closed. Then she began blinking and looking around, clearly trying to take in everything around her. Here. Mordred handed the little girl to her father, who was already tearing up. Thank you. The merchant seemed like he would never let the little girl go as he ran off, probably to tell his wife that their daughter was fine. Kate's mouth was hanging wide open, and she seemed about to swallow her tongue. Varys's eyes seemed about to fall out of their sockets. The healing took a while. There was only a small part of the city's population there. These people would spread the word like wildfire, first through the city, then the kingdom. Well, it would seem the attitude toward our new friend has drastically changed, Varys remarked dryly. In some cases. Kara nodded toward a group of priests in red and gold robes who were glaring at this interloper healing what should have been beyond human repair and claiming to be a god as if they were about to commit murder. They probably are. Keep a watch on him at all times, Mordred nodded to a pair of guards. Don't let the priests near him. It's probably a good thing that Varys is an atheist, otherwise the priest would probably have him, Kara thought, though she had to admit, after seeing what Mordred was capable of, if the priest tried to kill him for blasphemy, they would probably be the ones dead on the floor. I'll stick by him, Kara volunteered. Me and Beric are the best ones to keep him safe. It's not about keeping him safe, it's about keeping him from doing something politically damaging. Varys nodded to the priest. Religions, especially state religions, don't like competition. Mordred held himself up with difficulty until he finally reached the rooms that they prepared for him. Blast this frail body. He grasped onto his latent power and flooded himself with energy to replace what he expended in healing the people. Groaning, he sat down in the cushioned chair and rubbed his eyes. Slowly, he raised his malformed hand to his face, turning it back and forth. It was fortunate that his armor changed to fit his body, and the uniform steel covered a lot of the deformities. His legs were a different matter. The armor was tight to his legs, fully exposing how skeletal and lacking muscle they were, on top of how thin his upper body and arms were. I will probably need a different set of clothes. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Instantly, his armor changed to black and silver clothes, a long trench coat, thick pants, sturdy boots, and a pair of gloves. Well, it might not completely cover everything wrong with me, but some of it. Somewhat apprehensive, Mordred created a small mirror in the air so that he could see his face. Breathed out slowly as he examined himself. The main disfigurement was the three scar-like ridges running down his cheek, down his neck to his spine. They could not be passed off as regular scars, though the lines running over the rest of his face were more passable as scars. Slowly he ran a long fingernail along over the lines and the ridges. I have no way of fixing this, he whispered, eyeing the lines with a clinical detachment. So I must live with my deformities. Satisfied, Mordred stood up and adjusted his sleeves. There was one thing he wanted to see of all others: Gwendovir's shrine. He hoped that it was still intact and used for the purpose that he had intended, or something similar. He knew where it was, and he had a plan for how to get there. Casually, he walked to the window and out onto the balcony. Long coattails flapping, he hopped onto the balustrade and crouched, flexing his hand in anticipation as he changed the air around him so that anybody looking at him would see around him. Casually, he leaped off the edge and fell until he changed his gravitational alignment. So he was striding down the horizontal wall toward the ground as if he were on an incline. Finally, he leaped off the wall, all and onto the ground, readjusting his alignment to the ground. Once Mordred was outside the fort, he kept walking. He wished he could create illusions, but all he could manage was basic bending vision, as opposed to a carefully formed bodysuit or still images. So, he started walking with his bent vision spell around him. He just didn't want to have any conversations right now, or having people swarm him. He could take crowds for a certain amount of time, but he preferred small numbers that he could more intimately focus on. As he walked down an alley, Mordred noticed a small girl crying on a little box. Immediately, he turned down the alley and dropped the mask. Not wanting to disturb her, he sat down next to the girl and clasped his hands in front of him. Eventually, the girl noticed that she was not alone and looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Who are you?" she asked, sniffling and wiping her nose. A friend, small one," Mordred said honestly, creating a small bag of wrapped sweetmeats in his pocket. "Saw you were crying and thought you needed someone to talk to." Gently, he wiped her tears away with his gloved fingertip before handing her the bag. "What's your name?" "Jana." She accepted the bag, looking confused. "Well, Jana, why don't you tell me what's going on in your life?" he encouraged. Curious, despite her clear sadness, Jana opened her bag. Gasping, she pulled a small piece of meat slathered in sweet sauce. "This is mine?" she asked. "Yes," Mordred smiled. "But you have to tell me what you're going through." Slowly, the girl set the bag aside, twiddling her feet. "My daddy didn't come back from the fight." She closed her eyes and started fiddling with her fingers. "My mommy has been in her room crying. I don't know what's going to happen. Scared I won't have anybody to look after me." Mordred took the bag and offered it to her. "That sounds very hard," he said comfortingly. "I lost my mother and father a long time ago. Wish I could have been there for her, but I wasn't." "Why weren't you there?" Jana asked. "So, my mother gave me a task before she died, and she told me to do it at the cost of anything else," Mordred explained, leaning his arms on his knees. "What was that?" Jana opened the bag and took a bite of meat. "She called it feeding the lambs." Mordred reached into his jacket and pulled out some bread with honey on it. "It was her way of telling me to take care of those weaker than I was, to make sure that nobody in my vicinity was being oppressed. She told me that lifting those who needed lifting was the highest act that anybody could do." "Oh." Janet tilted her head, taking another bite of meat as Mordred did the same with his bread. "She sounds like she was very nice." "She was very nice," Mordred agreed wistfully. "If anyone in need ever came to her, she would give them more than they asked for." "Why feeding lambs?" Janet asked. It was more of an analogy that she used. Mordred raised his hand and created a tableau of a pack of wolves and a lion surrounding a flock of sheep. Janet's eyes widened as the wolves encroached on the lambs, the lion prowling closer and closer. Her belief was that some people are like wolves, predators aiming to take advantage of good people. the lambs, either through guile or violence. The usual image is the lion and the wolves fighting each other over who gets to eat the lambs. Or she believed that we could do better. The lion could defend the lambs and protect them from the wolves. And nobody is set in what they are. A wolf can become a lion just as a lamb can. And all they need to do is stand up for what's right. Janice seemed to be working through what he was saying. And so I can be a lion? She asked. Of course you can, small one. Mordred smiled and created an intricately carved wooden sword. Here, he proffered it hilt first to her. Will you promise that you will only use this to defend yourself, your mother, and anybody who needs your help like your father would have? Jenna built at her lip, then she nodded eagerly. Solemnly, Mordred let her take the sword and look it over. Here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin pouch. Give this to your mother. This will keep you on your feet. Thank you. The girl took the coins, then wrapped her arms around Mordred's neck. Smiling, Mordred wrapped his normal arm around her and let her hug him. This is what I was made for, Mordred thought as she ran off into the house, yelling about the nice man with the scarred face giving them money. I'm trying, Gwen. I'm trying to feed them as best I can. Casually, Mordred stood up and walked away. As he walked, he let himself look around at what had become of his beloved city. So much had been lost. Each building had been a beautifully crafted work of art. Each one representing a different aspect of nature. He could picture the wave and fish designs in the section he was walking through as if it were before his own eyes. Oh, my city, he whispered, placing his hand on the building that should have looked like a swirling mass of water, but was now a plain, uniform barrack building. What has been done to you? Closing his eyes, he leaned against the wall and let himself remembering everything that had been. Not ready to let it go yet. He slowly opened his eyes and retracted his hand. Hopefully, when he arrived at Guinevere's shrine, some remnant of what had been would not be lost. As soon as he approached, an initial relief washed over him. It still looked beautiful, with a golden solitary building with 5 red domes surrounding a white spire rising toward the heaven. Smiling, he walked toward the large pillared entrance. As soon as he got close, though, a familiar stench hit his nostrils. No. Mordred stumped down the stairs into the building to make sure of what he was smelling. As soon as the shade of the entryway enveloped him, the sight and stench of sweaty animal and excrement was clear, mixed in with men and women engaging in money lending, horse trading, and even prostitution. No, Mordred's fist slowly clenched. The rage that boiled inside him at this unforgivable violation of all he held sacred made him want to pull out his sword and start destroying every table in his immediate vicinity. Growling, he forced his anger down and started walking through the shrine-turned raucous marketplace. Fists still painfully clenched in on themselves, Mordred carefully listened to every conversation around him. Some of the merchants dealt fairly and equitably, but most were clearly exploiting their customers. Several money lenders were charging exorbitant exchange fees for transactions, on top of putting higher values on coinage from Nordenbad by several times. All over the place, customers in worn or in some case ragged clothing tried to reason with greedy merchants with no avail. As he walked through the shrine, the anger built and built until finally he reached the open space where Guinevere's statue stood up an elevated tall plinth. The white stone statue still emanated a bright light, which made the gold ornaments on her wrists and ankles drab by comparison. Her hair tumbled down to her waist, loose white rope draping her with a slight slit at her knees, exposing bare feet. Shoes are an irritation, Mordred could hear her voice remark as when he'd asked why she never even wore a pair of sandals. What need do I have for them? What would you have done in my place? Mordred thought, gazing up at his mother pleadingly. These people are being swindled. The shrine that I built in your honor has been defiled and made a stinking market place filled with criminals. Should I accept this? Or should I follow my instincts and throw them out? The statue remained frustratingly silent. Do you have any money? Because you can't be window shopping here. The merchant who'd approached Mordred backed away as soon as the angry Elder One turned his eyes on him. This place was meant to care for the poor and the sick. Mordred's voice throbbed with a slight distortion. And you have made it into a den of thieves. Immediately, Mordred's clothes were replaced by his armor, hooded, beaked cap pulled up to obscure his face. Smoke curled around his hand and formed into a caliburn. The merchant fell backward onto his arse. Abject terror slathered across his face as Mordred loomed over him. With one single powerful movement, Mordred smashed his sword into the nearest table, slicing the thick oak in two with one blow. Get out, Mordred snarled at the stunned merchant who'd been sitting at the table. Before I throw you out. The guards started uneasily handling their weapons, but Mordred made the decision for them. He ran forward, switching his sword to his weaker hand. With one fluid motion, he grabbed the nearest guard and threw him through one of the open windows into the street beyond. Looking around, he bared his teeth at the so-called merchants. If I were you, I'd run. He hefted his blade and charged. They ran, often leaving their wares behind, though a few managed to grab their money before Mordred tore their tables apart. Some guards attempted to fight him, but Mordred destroyed their weapons with a wave of the hand before bodily throwing them out. Finally, the shrine was empty, save for many of the customers who he had avoided antagonizing throughout his rampage. Drawing on his power, Mordred dismissed Caliburn and placed his good end on the ground. With careful precision, he sent his power through the shrine. All the accumulated filth was quickly destroyed. The graffiti and strange messages painted on the walls vanished, and the mess Mordred created through the destruction of the table was turned to steam. Mordred slowly straightened, glancing at the people staring at him, clearly unsure what to think of him. Set his mind at their minds at ease, he walked over to the steps surrounding Guinevere's statue and sat down. If any of you need help, he said calmly, I will give you what you need. And that's at the end.
I like the character interactions.
Nice. Anything in particular?
The wise guy basically mentoring the little one, being like, I like the dynamic of it, of imparting the wisdom.
Thank you.
I see Balerian's returned.
I think he's actually just working around. He's puttering around in the background. That'd be interesting. I've had similar ideas with Tri Brigade. I'm definitely going to be putting more trip. Almost exactly the right spelling, actually.
Sorry about that.
Perfectly all right.
I need to put those things in the freezer. Yep, I like the whole Mordred healing people and stuff.
Mhm.
In
Yeah, he's
fact, I
definitely
like that
kind of.
character in general. Sorry?
Oh, go for it. Sorry, he's a little bit more of an altruistic character than a lot of the uh, uh, characters that I've kind of been reading. A lot of them are kind of realpolitik characters, but he's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of your characters are kind of realpolitik too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's nice to have someone who's actually nice for a change. Although I did like that guy, the credit card guy. What was his name? Begin with an M. Malachor?
Yeah, Malachor. Yeah, he's
I did like him, but
he's
so
very.
and
Yeah, I'll have to get back to him at some point. I just need to write more of his story.
yeah, and the priesty thing is sort of interesting. Is is Kara named after the Kara in Hoo-Ha in Seeker?
No, her name
Balder.
Kara is just a K,
Balder.
A rather than a C.
Balder.
Sorry to disappoint you.
You could have at least have made it a Q.
You.
That would be
Quara?
no, just plain Q without the U. That would be very Germ.
I actually found out that like there's a lot of what is it? Like AE names in the British family that I found very interesting. Like
Who names?
AE names like Aethelwolf or Aethelred, etc.
Okay, yeah. There was what it reminds me of 1066 and all that. There was a wave of eggs. People's names like Egg Filth and Egg Filth and Egg this and Egg that. They weren't really egg, of course, but that was a parody. Old parody.
Interesting. I did not know.
Quite entertaining.
Oh, I imagine so.
Educational too.
Yeah, kind of like Brian Jackson did a thing after every Redwall episode where he would talk about like historical stuff. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
We should watch. Maybe we could do that for a live stream sometime, since like the entirety of the Redwall series is on YouTube for free.
I did read the first. I do have somewhere. I have the first book somewhere.
Yeah, it's a very wholesome little book. I still quite love that series. I'll have to. I think we'll have to conclude things there, unless you guys have any other thoughts for me. If not, we'll.
Oh, Ethelred the Unready. They do also go into that. Ethelred was unready, although I think unready actually means badly counseled. Yeah, no comment. That has a kind of an unfortunate name, that chap.
Yeah.
They used to spell it Canute, though. That's not quite so unfortunate.
Knut.
Oh, and 1066 and all that called him Canoe for that reason.
Canoe.
Canoe, because he was Canute, but it's actually short for Knut, which can be spelled with a C or a K. If it's spelled with a C, it looks kind of disgusting. No comment.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm like. No.
Anyway,
Yeah. All right. Well, next week, I'm gonna be trying to release daily stuff on Rumble for the next little bit. I recently just got it back up and running by just making a new account. Um, hopefully, this time I know how to avoid the bots, mostly by virtue of just make it private. And that's pretty much the extent. But we will call
do
it
some
good for.
speaker.
Yes, I need to put up all the Seeker episodes. Re-put up that. Yeah. That's gonna take so long.
Mm,
Since I have to do each one at a time. Probably gonna take like 17 hours at least.
that'll be a riot.
Yeah, especially since I can only do like 4 things at a time, and there's something around like, and I have to wait for hours. But we'll call it good for today. I think that for stream schedule, it's pretty open. I don't know how much. I think the only thing we have on the official docket is Batman Year 3. In terms of other things, I'm not 100% sure. I know we're going to be continuing commentaries on bad comedy movies, which are going to be. Are we going to see some more? I don't think anything quite matches the man horse thing. Do you remember there was one moment that I found very amusing in The Home Teachers, where this guy runs out in the middle of the road wearing a hollowed out deer head, yellow head, and the lady says in the car says, "You almost hit a deer car, Arl. That ain't no deer. That's a man deer."
Maybe the next bad comedy night we can do a little bit later.
I'll try to make it a little bit later. Yeah.
Yeah, because I missed it before. I came and then it was like, oh, it's already filled up. I'm like, oh.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, just a lot of people wanted to be on, but we'll see.